thank you guys for coming on. Thank you, Lyle, for our first designer that we're going to talk about future of fashion and the impact of designers. So we want to meet you at first. And I choose you to start this series off because you're young, you're still in school, and you're going to be the future. So I figured the best way to start is to start it in the future, with
Yeah,
someone like you who's
absolutely.
up and coming, and I see the potential. Yes?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. And we're here with Joy Berry, who is working the podcast and the whole topic with us as a young person also, as a consumer. So we could hear her questions about in the future what consumers like yourself will be looking for, and how you as a designer can make sure you satisfy your consumers. So we're all here to enjoy that little conversation, yes?
Yes,
Cool.
absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Joy. So we want to start off first with Lyle, about your design. I know we don't like to put designers in a box, but I'd like to know what category of design you are working on. What's your future plan about your design category? And just tell us a little bit about your line.
Absolutely, yeah. So my brand is called Ray Pool Service, and it's a streetwear brand. It's a one-of-one streetwear brand. So each piece is hand sewn and hand created using sustainable materials and vintage clothing that's kind of repurposed. So I definitely put myself in the streetwear category of fashion, but while also like sustainable fashion as well. So. Right. Well, I mean, my inspiration comes really from all over the place, and it varies by collection. So I think although I always will have consistent themes in all the work that I do, kind of inspired by the Ray Pool Service brand came from an actual pool service company that still exists and that I work for and have been working for since I was young. And that's kind of my base of inspiration, just that like blue collar workforce and that energy is really where I space my inspiration. But in every collection, there'll be something new. So for example, my previous collection that I just released had, like I said, that kind of blue collar workforce inspiration, but it was also inspired by the 70s punk rock movement in New York. And that was like the kind of the mix of collabs, like the collab of inspiration was there as well. And the current collection that I'm working on is inspired by athletics and like vintage athletic pieces. So it really varies.
Okay, so good. I'm glad you tell us what you're working on right now.
Yeah.
I think that this topic is about the future of fashion. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the impact of the quarantine and all what we're going through, having to wear face masks and the PPEs. How is that impacting your future design, not just on you as a designer, but as fashion in a whole? How do you see that impacting our world?
Well, I mean, for me personally, it's definitely given me a lot of time to work on pieces, obviously, a lot of free time, which is great because I'll often, and I think a lot of designers can attest to this, they kind of feel rushed when they have to meet deadlines and when they are surrounded by their peers who are also working. So it's kind of good to be removed from that pressure. So hopefully a lot of designers like me will take time to really work on things like regardless of pressures of the outside world. And hopefully we're going to see a lot of new cool stuff kind of coming out of our favorite designers on the other side of this. But I think though fashion as a whole is going to be impacted in a lot of different ways. For one, I think we are now coming to a peak of the end of a traditional retail experience like brick and mortar stores. And I think for a while the world has been going away from that, obviously with the increase of online shopping and technology. But I think now that people are kind of being forced in a way to not shop retail, they're realizing that they may not even need to at all. You know what I mean? And I'm sure there will still be retail, like unique retail experiences that'll draw customers in, exclusive stores where they don't have an online store, things like that. But I think this will definitely put a dent in the traditional fashion shopping experience. And also,
go ahead.
Yeah. And also I think that what's interesting about this was I really think this quarantine and kind of the lack of places for people to wear like clothes out has kind of stopped trends dead in their tracks. Like obviously we can still see a lot of trends prevalent, you know what I mean? Like a lot, like athleisure was big before, it's still big now because people can still wear that, you know, but I think that this will kind of reset popular trends. So I'm interested to see what trends and what types of clothing is going to be popular kind of on the other side when the world kind of opens back up again, if you will. I mean, I definitely think that like I said, I love the athleisure trend and the pairing of casual clothes with less than casual. Like, you know, you'll see people wearing suits with sneakers and wearing sweats to a more upscale event. Like, I think that's a really cool trend because it gives people the opportunity to like express their fashion regardless of an idea of what one is supposed to wear to a certain event. So I think that's going to kind of collapse, and we're going to see a lot of people dressing for themselves versus dressing for what they think they should wear for an event or what they think they should be wearing for a time. I think we're definitely going to see that. I hope that's the case because I think that'll lead to a lot of unique style, a lot of new things being invented, but also I don't really know if there's any specific types of pieces I'd like to see more of, but I definitely think the emergence of casual like streetwear hopefully will continue to be prevalent because that's what I do. So hopefully people will like doing that. So I have always done production all myself and kind of in a small bubble. So that I'm going to continue that going just because that's how I like to do it. That's how I like to kind of ensure that the quality is up to the standards and because how I can ensure that a piece is released when it's ready to be released, you know. But I think overall I am looking forward to hopefully more manufacturing in the United States, like you said, in the garment district, and hopefully we're going to move away because one of my least favorite things about the fashion industry right now is fast fashion and how huge that's kind of become. And that, of course, is a lot of cheaply manufactured garments overseas just kind of being shipped in and then thrown away. And that I really dislike the way that fast fashion is kind of made up. So hopefully, as we get away from taking in goods that have been manufactured overseas and kind of we look forward to not only like you said, increasing jobs and increasing manufacturing here in the US, we also kind of hopefully take a dent away from cheaply manufactured fashion and kind of get back to more emphasizing quality and production over quantity. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping that's what's going to happen. And I think that you're absolutely right when we're kind of we find ourselves in a position where it's not as easy to get the traditional goods that we've kind of been relying on. Hopefully we as a country and fashion as an industry will take it upon themselves to change that dynamic. You know what I mean?
Mind sharing?
No, of course. I think I've always kind of tried to move towards an integration of like e-commerce and social media. I love how a lot of brands are doing, like you can tap on an Instagram photo and shop the clothes right from the photo. I definitely want to look towards doing that because I think now everybody has a lot of free time to kind of look on social media. Hopefully we can then take the goods and bring them to more closely to where customers' eyes are. You know what I mean? And I think that I've never been a brand that has relied heavily on brick and mortar retail, like a retail location. So I personally am not going to be affected really by if there is a larger increase in online shopping and social media shopping. That's actually going to, I think, work really well for me because that, I think a lot of people will, if social media shopping becomes a more normal thing, I think my products will be able to get out to people better. But for other brands and in general, I think, like I said, a lot are going to look more towards selling on social media, but also look towards putting a lot more effort into keeping their kind of online selling and social media selling presences more up rather than their traditional ones. You know what I mean? So maybe a shift of resources, we'll see. You know what I mean? A shift of resources and effort.
Joy?
Absolutely. And now, but my question also is, do you think that like things like pop-up shops, because I know pop-up shops are like such a like New York and LA and big city thing, do you think that you'd ever participate in that? And how effective do you think they are, especially when the world opens back up again?
Well, I mean, I think they will be extremely effective as really they always have been, but it's interesting because it could go one of two ways. It could go one way where people now after this are terrified of the outside world as a whole, you know what I mean? And so they will now, after something like this has happened, prevent themselves from going out as much as possible. Or we could see the complete opposite, where people, now that things are a little bit safer with the actual virus, will now want to venture outside even more. So this could either be an extreme opportunity for pop-up shops or not, you know what I mean? And in my personal opinion, I think that people will always enjoy pop-up shops. I think that if there's a unique retail experience being offered, that people are going to be drawn to it. And obviously there's always that element of something cool or unique is happening. And even if you didn't know about the shop, you're kind of just drawn to it off the street if you're just walking by it. Or I think that's never really going to go away. But I think that it may take definitely some time to get back to a point where brands can be doing things like that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I also have another question. So I know that online businesses, for example, if we take like Kim Kardashian Skims or anything like that, are partnered with brands like Nordstrom. If your brand really did, blow up and everything, would you go to these other stores and sell to them and get like some type of profit back?
Well, I mean, that would be great. Obviously, that would be really great for my clothing to be in a place where it could be exposed to new customers who may not have seen it if it was just coming from me doing marketing and selling on my own. Then hopefully they'll maybe see it in Nordstrom. So that's a great opportunity. But one thing that I, as a brand, and I know a lot of other brands hold particularly dear, is kind of the brand's ethos over just sales. So for example, one thing that's really important to me is keeping it real kind of with prices. You know what I mean? So for example, I'll always kind of err on the side of a lower price than a higher price, just because I've been in a position where I want to buy something, but it's too expensive. And I will never want to put my customers in that position, if that makes any sense. So if a retailer said, we want to take on your products, but we're going to up the prices, we're going to make it hard to get, that's really never going to be something that I want to sacrifice. And in addition, I think that a lot of partnerships between brands and retailers will kind of change the way that a brand is viewed. You know what I mean? So for example, like I said, I really dislike fast fashion. So if my brand was to kind of appear in Urban Outfitters, you know what I mean? That would be untrue to my brand and image and the things that I believe in. So if I was to have a partnership, it would need to meet certain standards for me, but it'd definitely be something I'd be open to. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I admire the fact that you are going to be like very transparent with your customers. We really need that nowadays in fashion. So what do you think about influencers that, you guys share the same ideology, and you would you reach out to them? Would you say, hey, like, here are a few of my things, would you send them your stuff to, get more exposure to your brand?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that influencers can be great when they are trustworthy really to their audience. And I think that everybody can see clearly when an influencer on social media is not being true to their image, or perhaps just taking a check from a brand. Like, I think if you were to compare two influencers, you could tell which one is the one that is not being honest about products they use. So I think that the right influencer, I think, would be great for my brand. And the thing that I've always done in the past is just all of my customers are kind of my influencers, if you will. Because I always encourage people who buy my clothing to take pictures and post them, because then I'll repost them. And I think that's another huge thing about my brand's message and ethos, is that it's kind of supposed to be wearable to everybody. You know what I mean? Everybody is hopefully supposed to be able to look good in it and wear it and feel good in it. Obviously, if you don't like it, that's okay. Like, if you see it and you say, maybe that's not something I like, I don't like the graphic, I don't like the color, etc., that obviously is unique. It's someone's own style, but I don't ever want to feel that my clothes are for a particular type of person. So I think the right influencer who had the right values and was true to that accessibility, like saying, I like this and you should you should get it too, but only if you want, and I'm not, I think the right influencer would do the trick. But I wouldn't just send it to anybody, even if they have a lot of followers or a lot of influence. It just depends on the person, the influencer.
Absolutely. And I was going to ask you a demographic question, but you kind of already answered it. So
Yeah.
That's really good. But as for that, like, your target demographic, you said like you want everyone to wear it, but like, ideally, would you want, this type of celebrity to wear it? Would you want like it advertised to the skating industry, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely like the skate. Like I've always been grown up skateboarding and kind of doing sports like that. So that's definitely an industry that I would like it to be kind of more geared toward, as well as people that appreciate like pop culture. There's a lot of like movie references, music references in what I do. So I think definitely people that appreciate pop culture would gravitate more towards my pieces. But I think that the main audience that I don't want to use the word trying to hit, because again, a huge thing is that I want everybody to feel comfortable in my pieces, are the people that would like to participate in having fashionable clothing and participate in trends, but who may not really have the means to afford it. Because as I said earlier, you know, a lot of streetwear and all fashion in general is kind of overpriced. Like paying for a brand name is not necessarily something that a lot of people can do. So I think that I want my main customer is somebody who may not necessarily have the means to afford an overpriced piece of streetwear, but who still wants to dress in the style and the essence of streetwear. You know what I mean? So it's like an affordable piece, but it's that same quality. So they're not sacrificing any quality by paying less. You know what I mean? So that would kind of be the main people. But I suppose for a specific, like a particular celebrity, I think, you know, I would automatically gravitate more towards musicians, you know what I mean? Just because I'm a huge fan of the music industry. And, you know, I think that if the right, you know, I'm a huge fan of like any sort of like indie rock musicians, hip hop musicians, because those are all disciplines of music that I like a lot. So that would kind of that would work for me, you know what I mean? And work for my brand.
Cool.
I think my first order of business once this is over is I have been finishing my 4th collection, and that's given me a lot of time to work on the pieces. And I plan to be done with it in the near future, done with all the work. And then as soon as it's acceptable to do so again, I'm going to need to shoot like a lookbook, shoot some photography to kind of with the pieces, promotional photography. And then I just want to release it really as soon as possible, because my plan was to fully release the collection around this time, you know, but everything that has happened with the virus has kind of obviously pushed that back. So as soon as it gets to a point again where I can have models all in one space, you know, taking photos, that'll definitely be my first order of business. But from a sales and marketing perspective, I just want to get as much promotional stuff up as possible, as early as possible, and then just get the collection out there. You know what I mean? Because I've wanted to do that, as you know, so I think hopefully I can coincide the release of my collection with the end of the quarantine and the shelter in place sort of laws. So hopefully that'll also generate some excitement. You know what I mean? People will be feeling excited about being able to go out and do things again. And hopefully that'll inspire them to maybe want to buy some new clothes. So.
Sounds like a plan. Joy, if you have one more question, let's have that one last question in. And then Lyle, you can tell us a little bit about where to find your brand now and then when the quarantine is over. So Joy, you can go for it and then we can wrap up. So we could have some time to see what your collection look like as we show the audience, you take the audience through your collection. Super.
Yes, actually, that was my last question. Like, where can we find you? You know, like you have a website. I know you were talking about you are selling on Instagram. So where can we find you, and what's the best way that customers can purchase your clothing?
So definitely through social media at the moment. Is just my Instagram is my brand name. It's just Ray Pool Service. So that's REA Pool Service, all one word, no capitals, no spaces. And that's the best way to see new incoming products and new releases and stay tuned on everything that's being released. But as for purchasing, you can purchase it by way of my social media. But also another exciting thing that I'm working on right now is kind of revamping my web store and getting the web store to a point of its maximum accessibility. So also online, just raypoolservice.com, the same as the Instagram handle, but just online. So it's going to be available when it's available on the web store as well as social media. So that's the best way to get in touch and to find me. Yeah.
Perfect.
We love it. Thank you. One more last question from the PR standpoint. You said Ray Pool Service. So what is going to differentiate you when we go online from the regular guy who is doing the real pool service?
So,
as a PR standpoint, yeah, what's your PR pitch?
Absolutely. So the interesting part about that is the real Ray Pool Service business, as well as my clothing brand, are kind of in the same are going to be in the same website. So it's going to be kind of staying true to the brand aesthetic. What we're trying to accomplish with this web store kind of restructuring is you're going to come into the website and there's going to be two options. It's going to say pool service, clothing, and you can pick on which one that you like, just because the Ray Pool Service brand was inspired by this vibe and this energy that comes from this company. So we wanted to kind of keep them together and not get sued also. No, but that wouldn't actually happen. But yeah, so hopefully that's going to create a unique shopping experience as well. So yeah.
We're looking forward to the creatives and everything else behind it. Thank you, Lyle. Thank you, Joy, for joining. Thank you, guests, for looking. And see you guys next time at the Future of Fashion. Meet the designers. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for having me.
For sure.
Now, let me show you guys a couple of the things that I've been working on during the quarantine. First, an all-over print, hand-sewn pair of vintage Nike sweatpants, adorned with logos from all sorts of different athletic teams, as well as the Ray Pool Service logo. Then, one of my personal favorites, a Hofstra University football sideline jacket, then added on with some vintage names and branding from different types of athletic teams. Lastly, unique to Collection 4, for the first time ever, we're going to see lots of garments like this featuring very first one-of-a-kind prints. And this is a hand-drawn logo that was screen printed onto a t-shirt here. A completely unique logo and a completely unique look for the collection. Follow Ray Pool Service on Instagram and stay tuned for the drops.